Hello and welcome to Brain Upgrade. My name is Rajesh and I'm your host today. In previous videos, I have explained you how we can get Kubernetes cluster using minikube. Similarly, I have also explained you how we can get kubeadm Kubernetes cluster. In this video, we'll focus on MicroK8s. MicroK8s is a Kubernetes distribution, a lightweight distribution from Ubuntu Canonical, and it's the easiest and fastest way to get Kubernetes cluster up and running. So before we go through the steps on how we can create the MicroK8s Kubernetes cluster, let me explain you how we will go about things on our host OS on your laptop. We will create virtual machine using Vagrant and VirtualBox. The image used for this virtual machine is the Bento Ubuntu Vagrant box machine. Once we get this virtual machine, then we will install MicroK8s, and after that we will set up the Ingress controller. We will also set up Nginx so that we can route the request from Vagrant box to Kubernetes cluster via this Ingress controller, and we will test this working of Ingress controller by deploying Hello app within MicroK8s Kubernetes cluster. Steps are specified here in this file. So location of this particular file is specified in the description box below. I believe you have VirtualBox and Vagrant already installed. If not, you can install these two quickly. Assuming that you have Vagrant and VirtualBox, now we will create a temp folder, MicroK8s temp folder, and then we will initialize Vagrant using this command, Vagrant init. We are using Bento image. So once we initialize Vagrant box, we get this Vagrant file. Now update this Vagrant file and change the RAM to 4 GB. This is important for our virtual machine to be up and running. Okay, so once we update the Vagrant file, we can launch this Vagrant box using the command Vagrant up. So it may take a minute or so to launch this virtual machine. Okay, let me pause the video and then I will resume it. Okay, so Vagrant box is up. We can check it by using Vagrant status. So it is running. Now let us log in into that machine using the command Vagrant shs and name of the machine as default. Okay, so here we are inside the machine, and IP address of this machine is 10.02.15. So once we get the Vagrant machine, now we can install and launch MicroK8s using this command. So it may take 2 to 3 minutes to download MicroK8s. So I will pause the video, and once it is done, I will resume it. So MicroK8s is installed now. Now we will add the current user to MicroK8s group, and we will refresh this new group. After that, let us set two aliases. Okay, for shortcut for kubectl, and we'll also set another alias, and this kubectl alias refers to MicroK8s kubectl. Now we can check the nodes using kget nodes whether the cluster is up or not. So right now cluster is up but not yet ready. So let us wait for okay, now it's ready. Okay, so once cluster is up, we can install the Ingress controller. So this is the bare metal Ingress controller from Nginx. So we'll install this Ingress controller. Okay, it's getting created. While this controller is getting created, we can set up the Nginx on this background host to route the request to Kubernetes cluster. First, we'll install the Nginx and then we will configure the proxy, reverse proxy. The way to configure reverse proxy is to create the config file under sites available directory and then paste this particular snippet. So here this is the IP of background host, and we need to specify the port of Ingress controller, node port of Ingress controller. So let us get that port using this command service-a. So this is the node port for Ingress controller. So we need to specify this port in this config file for Nginx so that any request coming to Nginx server will be routed to Kubernetes master node and the node port of Ingress controller, so that application running inside the Kubernetes appropriate application will serve the request. So here I have specified any subdomain of this top level domain TLD. So once we do the configuration, we need to enable this configuration by creating a link under the sites enable directory, and we need to reload Nginx, restart the Nginx server. Okay, so now once reverse proxy setup is done, we can create sample hello app. So I'm using this particular image to deploy this hello app, and now let us expose this app using this expose and deploy command. And now let us create ingress for our hello service. So here you can see I have specified this particular URL for hello app, and this is the service port, and this is the class for the ingress controller to scan. So now once this particular ingress is created, you can verify it. So now hello ingress is created. So this is the ingress object that is created. Ingress controller, which is deployed as part of this cluster, scans this ingress object and checks whether the class is Nginx or not. If the class is Nginx, then ingress controller will fill in the address for this particular ingress object, so that any request coming to ingress controller for this host URL will be routed to this service. So now let us check if our app responds to this request. Okay, so right now there is no response, so we need to add the master node IP and the URL to background host file. The way to do is edit the etc host file. So here we need to specify background host and URL, so that any request for this URL will be routed to this IP. Okay, now we can call this URL and you can see app is responding to this URL. And if you look at the pod, you can also see the pod having this name, and the same name is reflected here. So this is how we can set up Kubernetes cluster using MicroK8s, and we can install the Ingress controller, bare metal Ingress controller from Nginx, to route the requests, and those requests can be served by Kubernetes deployed app. So while right now this is single node cluster, but you can add more nodes. If you type MicroK8s, and you can see other subcommands, and if you use this particular subcommand, MicroK8s will give the command, and this command can be run on other nodes, so that those nodes can join this particular MicroK8s cluster.